Okay, so the aim for this session is to give you an introduction to anxiety, some strategies to support an anxious child, both in the moment and more long term, and a bit of support on how to develop confident thoughts in children as well. This is kind of a bit of an introduction to our Parenting Anxious Children course, which is a 10-week course. So it's a bit of a snapshot for you. So just a couple of principles that we're going to keep coming back to. And the first one is the attention rule. So I just want you to just have a think about these questions. Do all children seek and need attention? Is it normal for children to want attention? And what happens if we pay attention to a behaviour? So really, we believe that attention-seeking behaviour is normal and it's very natural. And our adult attention can act very much as a powerful reinforcer of children's behaviour. It gives them lots of opportunities to learn how to be an adult and learn about the world around them as well. And as adults, we can really use our attention to change the sorts of behaviour that children display. So just thinking, it's really all about connections and relationships. So every time you think of calling a child attention seeking, consider trying to change it to connection seeking, and we'll see how that perspective changes slightly.
Okay, so as Helen suggested in the aims of today's session, we want to start thinking about the thoughts of children. Okay, and we want to try and nurture some confident thoughts in them, and we'll talk a bit more about the kind of thoughts that an anxious child may have compared to a confident child a bit later on. So I want you to start thinking about this cycle, and this is relevant to all of us as human beings, not just our children. Okay, and certainly thinking about some of those behaviours that might present at home or in school. So what we want to do is start to think about what's driving those behaviours. So we want to be thinking about the thoughts that a child might be having, and then the feelings that result from those thoughts, and then leading into those behaviours. And quite often they feed back into those same thoughts again. So it really is a cycle that we want you to start thinking about. Okay. And you may be familiar with the iceberg, if you've ever seen the iceberg image, where at the tip of the iceberg we see the behaviour of a child, whether it's defiance or however anger, whatever they may be, whatever kind of behaviour they may be displaying, but underneath that there's all sorts of thoughts and feelings going on for that child. So I want you to start thinking about that. And we promised you an introduction to anxiety, so let's have a think about how this thoughts, feelings and behaviours cycle plays into that, and also exactly what is going on when we feel anxious. So I want you to think about this little caveman from thousands of years ago. And I want you to imagine that he's going about his everyday business, and he's going to collect food for his family to take back to the cave. And all of a sudden, the enemy arrives, the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, and as you can see, the title of this slide, the fight, flight response, or sometimes called fight, flight, freeze, this is going to absolutely kick in for this poor little caveman in this moment. So what on earth is going through the caveman's mind? So in that moment, not much time for kind of rational thinking. So absolutely in that moment, his brain is just completely focused on that current moment. So what on earth is he thinking? So I'm imagining it's things like, oh no, I need to run away, I might die. Yeah, so lots of in the moment thoughts then when he sees the saber-toothed tiger. And of course, when he thinks those things, he's going to start feeling certain things as well. So he may feel shocked, he may feel panicked, he may feel scared, really scared. He may feel anxious, worried, nervous, all of those really difficult negative feelings in that moment. Okay. So what's he going to do? What are his behaviours? So thinking back to our thoughts, feelings, behaviours cycle. So he's got a couple of options. So he could run, so that would be the flight response. He could stay and fight, so there's his fight response there. Or the third one, he could freeze in the hope that the tiger doesn't see him, okay, that he just blends into the background and he freezes in that moment. So if he chooses to either run away or fight, he's going to need lots of energy, lots of power to do that. So what exactly is he going to need in order to run or fight? So he's going to need lots and lots of adrenaline. Okay, so I'm sure you're all familiar with that kind of adrenaline surge that we get in certain moments, whether that's kind of in anxiety-provoking situations, or whether it's going onto a roller coaster or doing something quite exciting. Really, really similar feeling that we get in those moments. So what might be the symptoms that are caused by that adrenaline flooding the body? Because this caveman is going to need lots of stuff to happen in his body in order to be able to survive in this moment. So what are those symptoms? Okay, so lots and lots of stuff going on. So he might, well, he will, his heart will race, most definitely. He might get a tight chest. He might get a lump in his throat. His head might start to spin. He'll get that feeling of disassociation. He might begin to feel faint. He'll be hot and sweaty. He might feel sick, have stomach pains, have a desperate urge to go to the toilet. His skin might go pale, cold hands or feet, and jelly legs and shaking as well. So some or all of those things going on for the caveman in that moment. And of course, all of those things are really horrible feelings to have, but they're absolutely essential for the caveman in that moment. So if we just look at a couple of those symptoms and think about why on earth that's happening in that moment. So if we think about the racing heart, so the caveman's heart needs to really start pumping now. It really needs to start working hard to get the blood flowing all around the caveman's body so that he's prepped and ready for action. If we think about what's going on in his stomach, so the pains that he's getting in his stomach, so his digestive system shuts down. He's certainly not going to be needing to eat in this present moment. That's certainly not top of the list for him in priorities. So the blood's going away from the digestive system. He may start to feel sick. So if this little caveman is sick, or he goes to the toilet, which is the urge that he might get, then not only will it kind of get rid of some of the weight in his body so that he's lighter and he's able to run faster, but also there's the potential for whatever comes out of his mouth or out of the other end to put off the enemy as well. So the smell would be so bad that the enemy would be put off. So all of these things that are going on as a result of fight or flight in his brain, so the amygdala is almost like the panic button in his brain that sets all of this off. All of this is going to prepare him for what's next. Okay, so that's the caveman. So how does that link to us? So of course, you know, we're not cavemen. We have evolved, we have progressed, but that same mechanism is still there for us. That amygdala in our brain is there as a panic button to keep us safe when we really need it. So that's great if we're in life or death situations. That's perfect. But it's quite rare for that to happen. And so the amygdala sometimes gets it a little bit wrong, and it senses danger when there isn't kind of real danger. So it may be that you're recognizing some of these symptoms in yourself. So if you're prone to feeling anxious in certain situations, whether that's kind of new situations or whether it's spiders like it is for me, I'll get some of these symptoms when I'm having to try and catch a spider in my house. So you may be familiar with some or all of these, and certainly your children will be as well. So a common one that we hear about is the tummy ache or the butterflies or feeling sick if a child is feeling nervous or anxious about something. So that's all part of the fight or flight mechanism going on for them when they're feeling a bit anxious. Okay, so the good news is that it's not harmful at all. So fight or flight is completely normal, and it's not harmful at all. And so after fight or flight, the good news again is that our immune system is supercharged for a few hours. So we're actually more resistant to germs and bugs. So it's a good thing for our fight or flight to be fired up from time to time. It's also used by sprinters, so they use fight or flight so that they can have a really quick start to races, so they use it for their own benefit. And something else that a lot of people say that they feel is that they're going to faint when they feel anxious, but actually you can't faint during the fight or flight response because our blood pressure goes up during fight or flight and it needs to go down in order for us to faint, so that's good news. And even though we might feel like we're going mad, we're not. So blood is rushing to our head and we might have rapid and frightening thought processes. This is completely normal and it's not a sign of madness. Okay, so it's perfectly normal for your head to feel foggy or confused in that moment as well. Okay, so what can we do about some of those symptoms? We're just going to have a look at some really quick kind of ideas that you'll be able to share with your children today, just to think about what can you do when they're feeling anxious in that moment. So something really easy and accessible is breathing techniques. There are loads and loads that we share with children that we work with, and there are lots that you can find on Google or various books. But a couple that we've put on there, so the star picture there is our star breathing. So encouraging a child to either imagine a star or to draw out a star in the air. And every time they create a point of the star, they're breathing in and then breathing out. So they're really focusing on drawing that star either in their mind or in the air as they breathe in and out slowly. Another one that we've put on there is for a child or yourselves to lie down and put something on your tummy. So whether that's a teddy or anything at all, a little toy, so that the child's really concentrating on watching that toy or feeling that toy going up and down as they breathe in and out, and really concentrating on their breathing. And there's lots and lots of other different breathing techniques that you can introduce to your children, because we know that when the heart rate raises during fight or flight, that the breathing rate increases. So we want to bring that back down to a normal rate as well. And the breathing techniques are really great to use in times of calm as well. So the more we practice them when we're calm, the more likely they are to kick in more naturally when we're feeling a little bit anxious. A really lovely grounding exercise that we always share with children is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So asking a child to think in that moment of 5 things that they can see, 4 things that they can feel, so you could encourage them to look around and touch 4 things that feel very different to each other, 4 different textures. 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste as well. And that's a really nice distraction technique. So when your own head or your child's head feels like it's spinning out a little bit, this is a really nice way to refocus and come back to the present moment. Powerful thoughts, so changing those negative thoughts that we might experience when we're feeling anxious into positive thoughts. And again, this is something that we'll move on to shortly, to do with how we can change those anxious thoughts into more confident thoughts. So some powerful and positive thinking. Encouraging a child to talk about what's going on for them, sharing the symptoms, sharing the feelings that they're having, maybe encouraging them to write out some of those worries or thoughts or feelings they're having as well. Bit more distraction there, so does it help your child to really focus in on one thing, so whether that's reading a book or whether it's doing some colouring or something where they're really focused in on something different, so something to take them away from those anxious thoughts and feelings. And then also, and again we'll move on to this a bit later when we talk about emotion coaching, but starting to do a bit of problem solving, thinking about the choices that they have, the things that they can do to help themselves feel better. And the whole sort of act of kind of writing things down helps with the grounding as well that we've talked about. And also it kind of engages the rational brain, because our emotional brain completely takes over in those moments. So thinking and writing in a rational way really helps. And then finally, spending some time outdoors, so fresh air is amazing for helping with anxiety. So it's recently been Mental Health Awareness Week where the focus was all on nature, and there's lots of research about how powerful nature is and how useful it is for our mental well-being. So going out for a walk, spending time outside, doing some exercise. So we've talked about the adrenaline that gathers in the body during fight or flight. So walking or exercise, anything that kind of uses up some of that adrenaline and encourages our body to get moving again. So they're just a few ideas of how we can calm the symptoms. And as Helen suggested, this is just kind of a very sort of whistle-stop tour of the 10-week course that we offer on parenting anxious children. So this is just a snapshot of some ways to manage anxiety in the moment. So Helen's going to talk shortly about those thoughts again. So the thoughts that anxious children may be having and how that then can in turn generate certain feelings. And that's when we start to see some of the behaviours as a result as well. So pass that on to you, Helen, now to talk about that.
Thank you. So thinking really relating our thoughts, feelings and behaviours to our children. You may recognise some of these thoughts if you've got an anxious child or you're working with an anxious child. Some of these thoughts that they might have, the 7 thoughts of anxious children. The world is not a safe place. Bad things happen to me. I have no control over the things that happen to me. Bad things come out of the blue. Other people don't respect me, and I can't cope with lots of things. So if we're relating those anxious, some of those key anxious thoughts into a thoughts, feelings and behaviour cycle. So say, for example, I take this scenario of a child going to a friend's party. It should be a lovely, happy time, but for a lot of children, it's they get quite anxious about it, don't they? So their thoughts might be, what if I don't win a game at the party? What if my friend won't sit next to me at the table? So thinking really that they can't cope, they're not going to be able to cope if their friend is not sat next to them, they're not going to be able to cope if they don't win a game at the party. So the feelings that will generate then, they could be worried because who they're going to sit next to, how are they going to cope if they can't sit next to their friend, scared, nervous, agitated, and maybe a bit lonely as well. They might be feeling like they're the only ones who feel like that. Which then leads on to behaviours. So the behaviours could be such a range for different children. So some children, they may run away, they may go and hide somewhere, they may refuse to go, they might cry. Some children get cross and they get angry about it and become very upset. But in essence, what they're doing is refusing to go to the party. They're using avoidance, and then they don't go to the party because they're getting very upset. Maybe they've said they've got a tummy ache, they feel quite physically ill, thinking back to those anxiety symptoms that they will feel physically ill, like they have a tummy ache, that they feel sick, and avoid going to that party. So avoid that what if I don't win a game? What if my friend won't sit next to me at the table? Which then will go on to reinforce those thoughts because they've had no opportunity to try it out and see that actually it is okay. So to flip those anxious thoughts, we would like to support children to develop confident thoughts. 7 thoughts of confident children. So the world is a pretty safe place. We can't say it's perfect, of course we can't, especially after this last year, isn't it? But it's a pretty safe place. People are pretty nice, really. Bad things don't pop up out of the blue. Bad things don't usually happen to me. Other people respect me. I have some control over things that happen to me, and I can cope with most things. So that child going to the party, their thoughts might be, instead of the negative thoughts of what if I can't sit next to my friend, or what if I don't win at a game, their thoughts might be, I'll have a good time. It'll be fun. I'll play with lots of people at the party, which will then in turn create those feelings of excitement, happy, they might be quite calm, elated feelings. And some of those feel can feel the same as some of the anxiety symptoms as well. So when you're really, really excited for something, you might get butterflies. It can be quite confusing for children. But then their behaviours is that they're not avoiding it. They will go to the party, they'll play at the party, they'll speak to people, and they'll have fun, which will then reinforce those lovely confident thoughts that they can cope with it, even if they haven't won a game at the party. They know that they're able to manage. So really, these are the confident thoughts that we want to be really supporting children to develop. So changing those anxious thoughts into these lovely confident thoughts as much as we can. We're going to keep coming back to those. That's one of the key principles from our Parenting Anxious Children course. So thinking about, just a word on the role of avoidance in maintaining anxiety, because this is really important, and that is something that can be a key behavioural factor. So it's a key behavioural factor in maintaining anxiety. If we avoid what we're anxious about, or we're supporting children to avoid something that they're anxious about, we don't get the opportunity to find out that they're harmless and that actually they're okay. We might miss out on opportunities to learn new coping skills as well. How are we ever going to know that we can cope with things if we don't try it? And the longer that we avoid something, the bigger that fear gets. So maybe for Sally's spiders, it might have been a tiny little one. She's avoided them, and now suddenly every little spider is a big tarantula. So along those notes, thinking about adult modelling of anxiety, and this is why the thoughts, feelings and behaviour cycle is particularly important for both adults and children as well. So we know that a large proportion of anxiety is learnt. Okay? Some children are particularly sensitive, and we know that if we've got an anxious child, they've got this little radar coming out the top of the head that other children might not have, which really easily detects any stress, fear, worry, potential danger. And we know that children will copy adults' anxious behaviours, but they'll also copy their confident behaviours as well. And so this is really why we need to consider how our own feelings and behaviours might affect our children, and how we push our children to embrace new experiences. So really thinking, we're feeling a bit anxious about putting them in that situation, putting our anxiety aside so that they can learn new confident behaviours. So again, coming back to the confident thoughts as well, a couple of ways, again, from a quick snapshot from our course as well, how can we help children to develop the confident thoughts? So those confident thoughts of people are pretty nice, and I have some control over things that happen to me, things aren't done to me. Other people respect me and I can cope with most things. How can we help develop those? So one of the key things that we can do as adults, both as parents and as practitioners, thank you, Sally, is praise, 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 praise. So remembering the attention rule that we talked about right at the beginning, praise is a really, really powerful form of attention, and we can use it to really increase the frequency of the behaviours we want to see more of. Okay, we praise to get more good behaviours, and importantly, for our children's confident behaviours. So a few key tips for praise: using specific labelled praise. So instead of just saying, well done, you've been really good today. What does good mean? What did I do that was good? I don't know. So really specific labelled. Well done for walking down the stairs nicely. Well done for brushing your teeth after I asked you twice today. Giving praise straight away. It's really easy, really effective. We don't need to go out and buy anything for it. We can just say it. Sounding really positive as well, even if those times where we're really, really tired, we've had a really rough day, doing that Oscar-winning performance, taking a big deep breath, putting our shoulders back and putting that big smile on our face and sounding really positive. Well done. I'm really proud of you. Well done. Giving praise as often as possible. Okay, I've never heard of a child that's been praised too much. Just give it all the time, every little thing. Avoid following with a criticism. I was always a bit guilty of this. So, well done for tidying your room so well. Why can't you do this every week? What the child will hear is that you've given with one hand and you've taken it away with that criticism afterwards. So just stick to the well done for tidying your room so well. Not waiting for perfection as well. Again, going back to the confident behaviours that we really want to increase. You know, if they've taken that extra little step towards something, say it's going on a new experience, they're not quite there yet, but why not praise them for doing that extra little bit or giving that little bit of that brave behaviours, and focusing on what you want more of. So, for example, instead of well done for not arguing with your sister, can we switch that to be a bit more positive? I'm really proud of how you played nicely with your sister today. So praise is a really, really effective way of helping children to develop those confident thoughts. And again, I think we always get asked, what about those children who don't like lots of attention, don't like lots of praise? And it is quite common with our anxious children that they might be a little bit embarrassed by that. They don't want that attention fully on them. So a lot of non-verbal things can work really well with them. You know, a little thumbs up, a little pat on the back. I think someone said on a recent course, a little ruffle of the hair. Sometimes with older children, you leave a little post-it note for them so that they're hearing it, they take it in, and over time, children will become more confident with accepting praise. And it's also really important that we practice accepting praise as well. I don't know how many times, if you're anything like me, how many times someone will say to you, oh, I really like that. That's a really nice dress. It's a really nice top. Oh, this cheap old thing. Oh, I practice accepting that praise. Oh, thank you very much. With a little smile. It's hard, but we're really modelling that to our children then, really modelling that we're confident and we can accept praise. So looking again at the confident thoughts, so praise will really help to develop most of these thoughts. So people are pretty nice. We're being really nice to our anxious children if we're praising them. Bad things don't usually happen to me. Well, this is a really good thing. Praise is a really nice thing. I can cope with most things, even if they've tried and attempted something and not fully got there, but we've praised them for trying and for being brave. They will see that they can cope with that. Other people respect me, and especially I have some control over things that happen to me. So if children learn how to get plenty of positive attention from adults, they've got some wonderful control over what happens to them. Then they know how to get that lovely positive attention.
Okay, so I just wondered, Helen, are there any questions so far? Because we're kind of halfway through, so rather than racing too far ahead.
Look. How would you recommend if a child feels as though they have a responsibility to look after a parental figure? Okay. So look, how would you recommend dealing with a child who feels a responsibility to look after a parental figure? Well, I think we'd have to look at a bit more information with that. I think so there could be loads of different things around that. I think I suppose it depends if you mean in a medical way or whether they've just got this perception that they have to look after a parental figure as well. It just says it's quite complex.
Okay, yeah.
Sometimes children do feel a sense of responsibility for parents, or even indeed for siblings that might be older than them or younger than them, and they take that on as their responsibility, don't they? It's behavioural, not medical. So, yeah. So I think anything is going to come down to, I suppose, in this short session, come down to really trying to develop those confident thoughts. So having a look at those confident thoughts and thinking, is he trying to engineer, oh sorry, I don't know if it's a boy, are they trying to engineer a lot of control, and is that because they don't feel like they have control in other areas? So could you find times to give them more control? For example, something we talk about on our course is special play. So really, you know, child-led focused time with them. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Sally.
No, I'd agree with that. It's difficult, isn't it, without knowing sort of the complexities of that. But yeah, I think no, I'd agree with what you said, Helen. Okay, so let's have a think about what else we can do to develop those confident thoughts in our children. So something that we'll cover now, and again, we cover in more detail on the full course. We're going to talk a bit about emotion coaching. And I think in terms of the confident thoughts that's really going to focus on is certainly that other people respect me. So the way that we're going to coach our children with their emotions is going to show them that they're absolutely respected, that we respect what they're saying, we respect what they're feeling, and we respect them enough to try and help them and support them. They're also going to start to think that people are pretty nice, really. And also that they can cope with most things, because we're going to coach them through difficult feelings and situations to help them cope as well. So what is emotion coaching then? So emotion coaching was developed by Dr. John Gottman, who's an American psychological researcher. They have, him and his wife, Julie, have their own website. So if you Google emotion coaching, you'll probably be sent straight to their website. And there's some nice little video clips on there that kind of summarises emotion coaching and what it's all about. And together they've written all sorts of different books and done lots of research, quite a lot on relationships, but then particularly emotion coaching for children. So let's have a look at what it's all about. So emotion coaching aims to teach children strategies to deal with emotions. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? We all want our children to be emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent. Children learn it's okay to display emotions. That's really important. And also moments of negative emotion are opportunities for the adult to teach the child effective coping skills. So we're really jumping on those kind of moments of intense negative emotion, if you like, and we're actually using them as opportunities. We're really helping the child in that moment to learn those coping strategies. So emotional intelligence is developed in the child, and children who are emotion coached learn to trust their feelings, regulate their own emotions, and solve problems as well. So emotion coaching goes as far as to help children to learn those problem-solving skills too. So let's have a look at emotion coaching in action. I'm sure you're familiar, and in fact I think it was on TV again recently, the film Inside Out, and we'll have a look at how the character Sadness, so the little blue one with the glasses on, let's see how amazing Sadness is at emotion coaching. Play this clip.
My rocket! Wait, Riley and I were still using that rocket. It still has some song power left. Who's your friend who likes to play? No, you can't take my rocket to the top. Riley and I are going to the moon. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time. We had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way. My rocket!
Okay, so really nice little short clip there, really just to demonstrate how sadness, her response there, really sort of just sitting down by the side of him and really feeling what he's feeling. And you can see sort of she mirrors his expression of sadness, and then she repeats kind of how he's feeling, and she's mirroring that whole time and just sitting with him in that ache, if you like, of how he's feeling, rather than trying to distract him or fix him or anything at all in that moment. So really kind of acknowledging and validating his emotions in that time. So this is what emotion coaching is all about, really. So the Gottmans have sort of a 5-step process for emotion coaching. So starting at the bottom of that tree on the left there. So the first step is really a really good awareness of your child's emotions. So really tuned in to how your child is feeling. And the second step then, recognizing that emotion as an opportunity for connection or teaching. So helping your child is step 3, to verbally label emotions. So using the language of emotions with your child so that they're starting to use that same language as well. So that means sometimes with younger children, telling them how they're feeling. So saying things like, you're sad, or you're angry, you look really worried, and using those words so that they can start to put those all together in their own vocabulary. Absolutely, for step 4, communicating empathy and understanding. So just like sadness did there in the clip, really sort of feeling those same emotions with them, really empathizing with the child in that moment as well. And then the final step then is setting limits and problem solving. So we didn't quite get as far as that on the clip there, but the next step for sadness there would be to think about how to help the other character and how to kind of, you know, move forward as well. So those are the 5 steps of emotion coaching. And again, that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of it, which we would go into more detail on the full course. But just a couple of nice images that sort of resonate with us there. So the one at the bottom, sometimes we don't need advice, just someone who will sit with us in the ache for as long as we need. And I know certainly with myself, sort of, you know, as a grown-up, I know that it's the friends who kind of just listen to me rather than give me answers or tell me about when the same thing happened to them. It's just somebody who kind of wants to just sit with me and kind of be with me in that moment is what I need most. And then when little people are overwhelmed with big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not to join their chaos. So in a moment of really intense emotion, we're going to be that calm force that helps them to get through that. Okay, so what does emotion coaching actually look like in real life? So what sorts of things can we say when our children sort of present to us with certain difficult emotions? So we want to aim to empathise, of course. We want to validate those feelings and we want to label them for them to help build that emotional intelligence. So we might say something like, you look really angry. I'd feel angry if that happened to me. It's normal to feel like that. Because we want children to understand that all of these emotions are perfectly normal. I notice you're not keen to do your maths work. I wonder if you're feeling a bit nervous that your work might not be okay. Have I got that right? So I noticed is lovely. So letting a child know that you really can see how they're feeling. And I wonder, so rather than the direct questions, it's just that curiosity about how a child might be feeling. And often a child will put you right. If you've noticed something and you're completely wrong, then quite often they'll put you right. And the wondering is lovely because it avoids those direct questions. It's just that kind of wondering to yourself, and then a child can either choose to answer that, or they can just have a think about it. So once we've empathized, once we've validated how they're feeling, and once we've labeled some of those emotions, we need to think about setting some limits, because we talked earlier about some attention-seeking or connection-seeking behaviours that might be quite difficult at times. So, of course, we want to think about the thoughts and feelings that underlie some of those behaviours, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are setting limits on those behaviours as well. So we might say it's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to hit. So a nice simple phrase there in that moment. Or, you didn't come off your game as we agreed. You're probably angry that you can't play with your friends, but you need to stop now. And finally, these are the rules that we all have to follow. Doing that is not okay. So really clear limit setting there. And then finally, in terms of problem solving, so in that moment, so as the Gottmans say, using kind of moments of intense negative emotion as times for learning. So we might say something like, this isn't a safe place to be angry, let's go to a safe place and then we can talk. Or let's think about some ideas together that will help you to solve this problem. And then also encouraging the child to think back to a time when they might have coped better. So can you remember a time when you coped with this? What did you do? Okay, so just a few ideas of sort of scripts, if you like, of how you can use emotion coaching with your child.
So we've given a bit of a, like Sally said, a whistle-stop tour of the full Parenting Anxious Children course, which is a 10-week course. But the main principles are there, and the 7 confident thoughts is one of those biggies that keeps coming back. And it's something that we've found that if parents and practitioners bear this in mind, it kind of gives something to aim for, a bit of context to it, doesn't it? And the two strategies, the 2 main strategies that we've talked about today, the praise and the emotion coaching, as well as those strategies for in the moment anxiety, will really help to develop all of these confident thoughts in children. So if we're just coming to the end, we have got a couple of questions which we will come to in a minute. However, just wanted to talk quickly about the Parenting Anxious Children course, the full one. So if your child is at a Stockport school and you are interested in completing our full 10-week course, you are more than welcome to speak to your school and ask to be referred for this course. So it is a 10-week programme to develop understanding and strategies to manage children's anxiety. So we've got the bits in that we've already done, the praise, we put the reward and bravery with there as well. We talked briefly about avoidance, and we talk a lot of detail about avoidance and exposure as well. We talked about emotion coaching and the key principles of the thoughts, feelings and behaviour, and there's 7 confident thoughts as well. There's also other elements in there, the importance of play, limit setting and consequences for some of those really big emotions and some of those really big feelings as well, and managing worry as well. We go into quite a lot of detail on that. So I'm going to stop recording now so that we can answer any questions that people have got.